Hello everyone, welcome to aisle 641. This is Tips to Make You a Top Chef. My name is Kathleen Odell. I'm with the Springfield-Greene County Library District, and we're here with Eleanor Taylor from Prairie Pie, and she's going to teach us how to make the perfect pie shell from scratch. Many of us are cooking more these days in our kitchens, and some of us have not yet mastered making a pie shell from scratch, and so she's going to help us do that. But first, before we begin, Eleanor, would you tell us what inspired you to get started baking, and tell us a little bit about Prairie Pie?
So I've been baking my whole life with my grandmother, so I've always had a passion for it. I got my first baking job at 16, so I've been doing it ever since. And I've always had bakery jobs, and I knew one day I wanted to start my own business, and at 23, I guess I was just fired up and ready to get going.
So did you start with cupcakes first, or did you go just whole hog into pie shells?
Whole hog into pie. So I feel like Springfield had a need for pie. We didn't have too many options for locally made pies, so that's why I chose pie.
And so where can we find your pies?
So you can find my pies all over town. We sell our miniature pies to Mama Jean's on the weekends, so all 3 locations of Mama Jean's sell the miniature pies. You can also find miniature pies at Culture Counter in the Roundtree neighborhood. We sell slices of pie at City Butcher, Cherry Picker, and Druff's.
Great, that's a lot of options.
Yes.
And then if someone wants to order a pie from you, you call ahead, right?
Yes, so they can place their order online, or they can call me at 417-459-8222. And we work very seasonally, so there's lots of different options all year long for pies. We're heading into the fall season when we're taping this, so we're offering a lot of fall flavors, which is what I've made for you today, is a fall flavored pie.
And what is that one?
It's a plum almond pie.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, I can't wait. But first, let's just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Show us what you're doing.
Perfect. So today we're making our all butter pie crust. The reason we use all butter in our pie crust is because butter is delicious. I don't know if you've had it before, but it is one of my favorite ingredients. So we're going to get started with the crust recipe. So you will need today a stick of salted sweet cream butter. We do 1.25 cups of unbleached flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and then we've got 1/4 cup of ice water and apple cider vinegar. So I'm going to start with the flour. I'm going to get my 1 cup measuring cup and my 1/4 cup measuring cup. And then this is called a bench scraper. It's one of my favorite tools, and we'll use it to level off the flour.
And what is the secret about apple cider vinegar? I've never heard about that.
The apple cider vinegar actually helps prevent the formation of gluten in our pie crust. So pie crust is almost the exact opposite of making bread. We want to prevent the formation of gluten instead of adding more, which is what you do when you make bread. And it also adds a little bit of flavor, a little tang. Okay, and then we need 2 teaspoons of sugar. 1, 2.
You don't do that, Martha Stewart, leveling off.
I do a little bit of a shake for the sugar. And we need to do 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we use kosher salt in the baking world. I can't tell you the reason why, but it's what everybody uses. It's just a thicker grain salt, as you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. And then we have our pastry blender here, so we'll take this and mix our dry ingredients in just a bit. And then we can add our butter.
And the butter needs to be super cold?
Very cold, yes. As you can see, we've got ice water here, and then we've got our butter that has just been pulled from the refrigerator. And I actually pre-cubed it, so what I'm going to do is just break up the cubes a little bit.
So important to cube it first, and then...
Yes. So this has been resting in the butter I cut, and then it's been in the fridge for about an hour, just to chill back down. So now we're going to use the pastry blender to go ahead and cut the butter into the flour mixture. And it's just a downward motion with your wrist. And we're just incorporating that butter into the flour.
How small should those crumbles be?
So we want to get them to look in about like pea size. Okay. So pretty, just like a single pea is the biggest chunk of butter that you want to have in this mixture.
But really important that it's right out of the refrigerator. Pretty
Yes,
cold.
exactly. We're going to actually mix the water in with our fingers, and when your hands are warm from the blood in your hands, it actually will warm the crust. So it's very important to keep the butter as cold as you can.
And probably work pretty quickly too, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we're getting close. And never use your fingers to clean off the pastry blender because it's sharper than you might think. Okay.
Probably a plain old fork wouldn't cut it very well. You'd be there all day.
You might be there all day, yes. You can do this with your fingers, but I think it's just important that you put it back in the fridge and let it chill down before you try to add the liquid to it.
Oh, okay. So this goes, after you do this, this goes back in the fridge.
This will not, but I'm saying if you use your fingers to do it, yes. Okay, so we are right where we need to be. So these look about the size of a pea. And so we're ready to add our liquid. So we're done with the pastry blender.
And again, this is a mixture of?
Apple cider vinegar and water. So there's no exact measurement. You just want to make the water look about like apple juice. As it does here. It might be a little bit lighter than apple juice, but we need a 1/4 cup of this, and we want to prevent the ice cubes from getting into the water. Okay, we're just over a 1/4 cup there.
Why is it important that it's ice cold?
Just like I said, the butter needs to stay chilled, and so we want to just keep it really cold. And the purpose for that is that we want to make sure that this butter stays in nice big chunks. And if it stays in those chunks, then that means the pie crust is going to be very flaky, which is what we're going for.
Right.
Okay, so I mixed that water in with a spatula, but now I'm going to actually get my hands in on it and form it into a nice disc shape. Okay, and it should come together pretty easily. There's a lot of butter in there, so it should stick pretty good.
So we're going for flaky.
We're going for flaky. And this is the most important part of not overworking your pie crust.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, we want to make sure we're not using too much kneading to get it together. So as soon as all of the pie crust comes together, I'm going to stop touching it so we don't overwork the pie crust. If you do overwork it, it's just going to make your crust a little bit more elasticy in texture, and it will be harder to roll out. Yes, so we're going to try to avoid that.
Is that what people describe as tough?
Yes, yes. And also when you put it in your pie shell, it will shrink when you bake it. So if you ever bake a pie crust and it just shrinks right up, it's because it's been overworked.
Ah. You know, I was going to ask you, if you're baking a pie shell just for a filling, so you're baking it ahead and then adding the cold filling later, how you keep it from shrinking. That's one way to do it, right?
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're not overworking it, and we also want to bake it with a set of pie weights or pie beans, uncooked beans, which I can show you a little bit later. Okay, so this is right where we want it. I've formed it into a nice dish shape so I can take it right out of the bowl. And so at this point, I would suggest refrigerating your pie crust. So let it rest overnight in the refrigerator if you have time, or for at least 2 hours. And so it'll be nice and easy to roll out once it's been chilled. Okay, so for rolling out the pie crust, we need a rolling pin, a pizza cutter, and then the bowl that I use to make the crust in is a 13-inch bowl. So if you have this at home, it's great to have as a little secret weapon, which I will show you. And then we've got a pie tin ready for the crust to go into, and then a little excess flour for rolling. So I usually start rolling out the crust by adding a little bit of flour to my work surface, and then a little bit of flour to the crust. And then my trick for rolling out is to just I go back and forth, and I try not to get too many turns going on. Right. And the other trick is to constantly turn the pie crust. So we want a circular shape, and spinning that constantly is going to help keep it into a circular shape. Okay. So we're doing a pretty good job keeping it a circle.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, it's almost done.
It's almost like you've done this before.
Just a few times. And you can patch any holes that you may make. I just made a little bit of a hole. Just pinch the dough together. Okay. But we're constantly spinning. If you start to get stuck on the table, you can always fold it back and add a little more flour. You want to use just enough flour to make it not stick. You don't want to use too much flour.
Will that affect the consistency of your shell?
Yes, it will make the pie crust, it will dry out the pie crust if you have too much flour. Okay, so now our little secret weapon is this bowl here. So I'm going to turn this upside down and see if we're the right shape, and it looks like we are. So now I'm going to use my pizza cutter. And we're gonna trim off this excess here. And you can save this excess pie crust to make your little cinnamon treats. So you can cover them with cinnamon, sugar, and butter. And it's very delicious. And we'll just set that to the side.
I bet your grandma had that trick.
Yes, she did. Okay, so now we have a pretty great pie crust that we can fold in half and put into our pie tin. So right down the middle there.
So really important to roll it out so that it's this big. Don't try to put a pie shell on top of the dough and then cut it, because you won't have any leftovers.
Yes, so this way we have excess. You can see how much excess pie crust we have, which is going to be wonderful to create a nice crimp. And so I can go ahead and show you how I do that. I always start at the top of the pie crust, so I've got plenty of wiggle room. And then for just a pie shell, if this is for like a custard pie, like a pumpkin pie, I can go ahead and crimp it. So I just roll it underneath and we set it right on top of the lip of the pie shell.
Okay, you roll it in.
So you kind of have a spiral motion there, if you can see that. So we spiral it in on itself, and I'm constantly turning this pan.
And that makes the edge a little thicker than just trying to fold it.
Yes, exactly. And if you ever have too much, you can pinch it off and toss it aside. Add that to your cinnamon stick pile. Okay. So we go all the way around, and then once you get close to the end, you can kind of unravel the other side and tuck it back in on itself. So we have a seamless rim around the edge. Okay. So now what I usually do at this point is I kind of pinch with my fingers and adjust it so the shape is mostly the same all the way around. So we've got there's not different thicknesses. Okay. So at this point it's ready to crimp, and I can show you my classic crimp style. So I use 2 fingers on the outside and the index finger on the inside, and I kind of pinch around my index finger. And my crust is breaking just a little bit, but that's okay. This is you can prevent the crust from breaking if you let it rest overnight. It'll be a little bit more easier to work with if it's had time to rest.
And you rest it already at that point in the fridge?
Yeah, so just that crust disc can be rested in the fridge, yes.
You know, I was going to ask you too, at that point, can you freeze the dough later so you can make ahead?
Absolutely. You can make a whole big batch of crust and put it in the freezer and just pull it out the day before you need to use it, which is what we do here. Okay, and then
That looks gorgeous.
I press those down.
My pies don't look like that.
I press it down flat because this pie crust puffs up quite a bit. So you can press it down flat and it will turn out beautifully.
Like little flowers, really. So when you are making your dough and it's sitting there, how do you know at what point you should just start over it? What is the point of no return?
The point of no return would probably be if you have so much flour that it's just cracking beneath your fingers, probably. Okay. Yeah.
Is there any way to save that, or is it just time to start over?
I would say it's probably time to start over, just because you could add more liquid, but then you would end up overworking the dough even more, possibly. But the biggest trick is to just let your dough rest in the refrigerator overnight. Okay. Yeah, it will be so much easier to work with. So this will go directly into the oven or to the freezer. You can save this for a different date if you need to, but this is ready for some bacon.
Great. And so how would you cover it to properly preserve it?
To preserve it, you can wrap it in saran wrap and stick it in your freezer, and it will stay there for several weeks.
If you are making a pie shell for a cold pie, so you have to bake it first and fill it later.
Yes.
How do you prevent your pie shell from shrinking?
So I have a very special trick, which is using pie weights, and this is very easy to do at home as well. So the crimped shell, we froze it solid, and so as soon as it's frozen solid, I can take it out of the freezer and line it with foil. So I just put the foil in there and press it. We want to make sure it's in all the nooks and crannies of the pie shell so we can get as much filling into this pie shell later as we can. So I press it all the way down. And then I have my ceramic pie weights here.
Ceramic pie weights?
Yes, so they're just ceramic balls, and you can buy these online. They sell them, most retailers online that sell cooking tools. But if you're in a pinch, you can also use dried beans. So that's a very easy and cheap way to get your pie crust looking wonderful with just a few dollars worth of uncooked beans. But because I think that the ceramic pie weights do a better job conducting the heat, so it's gonna cook the bottom of the shell better probably than the beans will. But so we will dump all of these.
You fill the whole thing.
You fill the whole thing. Yes. So when you do buy the pie weights online, it will send you a very small amount of pie weights. But if you really want to keep your crust right where it is, you're going to want to buy several packages of the ceramic pie weights.
And the reason is you just want to fill the whole thing.
Fill it all the way up, yes. It's not going to affect your crust in any way if it's all the way full. All it's going to do is just hold that crust right in place, right where it's at.
Now, you took that out of the freezer because you had prepared it. What if you don't have time to then put it away and let it freeze? Can you just go ahead and do that after you've made up your pie shell?
Yes, you can. You just have to be more delicate with the foil so not to ruin your crimp. Okay. So the great thing about it being frozen is that these crimps will stay right where they're at. So I haven't damaged them in any way. Yes. Okay, but from frozen, this can go right into the oven, and we will pre-cook that, and then it will look just like this.
Wow.
So we have a fully baked pie shell. I don't know if I'm able to take this out. So you can see the bottom is fully cooked.
Yeah.
And you can put a pumpkin custard into this. You can put a coconut custard into this, and it will turn out beautifully.
Sounds great. So what are some of your favorite pie fillings?
My favorite pie filling is definitely our honey custard pie. It's a little bit more of a unique pie. It is a chess pie. Have you ever heard of a chess pie? Yes. So it's a very traditional Southern style custard, and we put a lot of honey in it, and then we also top it with sea salt to kind of cut the sweetness of the honey. It's very good.
Oh, and sea salt's pretty flaky, isn't it?
Yes, so we use a flake sea salt, so it also adds a little bit of a texture to it, a little bit of a crunch.
Right. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
I read a study that 1 in 5 people admit to eating an entire pie by themselves. Have you?
I can say an entire mini pie. I don't know about a full pie, but I have customers that, yes, have admitted to me that they've eaten a whole pie.
I haven't done that yet, but I'm eager to try the pie that you have made for us.
Perfect. Let's have some.
All right. So tell us about this pie.
Okay, so this pie is a plum almond pie. This is one of my favorites, so I'm so glad you selected it to have today.
This is a seasonal pie. Right?
This is a seasonal pie, so this pie it's available late summer to early fall, and we usually have it, I would say, between August and October. So we use a variety of plums, and then we also add almond extract. And the balance of the almond extract with the plums is very delicious.
Oh,
I can show you that here.
Oh, that is beautiful. Look at the lattice work, just sort of puffs up.
Yes, we do a very thick lattice, so the whole thing is covered, but it's also got those air holes in there as well.
So when you are doing the plums, do you have to peel and cook down?
So we just slice the plums. We don't cook them down beforehand. So they're sliced, and then we add our sugar and spice mixture. So it's sugar, brown sugar, and then a thickening agent called arrowroot powder. So it's similar to cornstarch, but it's just a little bit less. Sometimes cornstarch can make the pie a little bit gelatinous, like a jelly, but we just want to make it a little softer. So we add arrowroot powder, and then this has cinnamon, allspice, and ginger.
Wow. And you don't worry about the plum covering,
No, the skin,
skins?
it actually, it makes a nice texture, I think. So, which
and
hopefully you will
cooking-
like.
Yes, let's please do.
Wonderful,
Do you
okay.
have a trick for slicing pie that the first one comes out nice?
I truly do not. My only advice is to just take your time and to take it slow, I guess. Yeah, that's my only advice. So I start in the middle and I take my knife all the way back. And I guess my tip would be to cut thoroughly through twice, just to make sure you've sliced all of the crust all the way through. And this pie is still warm, so it might be a little bit juicier than it would be normally. Might be a little bit more. And I've got my pie server here. So then I kind of just put my pie server underneath the lip of the pie shell, and it comes out pretty smooth.
Ooh, it does. It looks gorgeous.
Alrighty, here we go.
And the plums look blonde.
Yes, so these have like a pink skin and a yellow inside, and so it creates a really nice, beautiful pink color.
Great. All right. This looks like the perfect pie in the perfect pie shell. Let me try this. The aroma is just wonderful. Oh my goodness. This is great.
We top all of our fruit pies with raw sugar on top, and it gives it that crunch to the top, which is amazing. My ending tip is just to make sure your pie crust rests in the refrigerator and to have fun with it.
Okay. Eleanor, thank you so much for joining us on aisle 641. This is aisle 641, tips to make you a top chef. And if you would like more tips on how to be a top chef, you can visit aisle 641 at any of the Springfield-Greene County Library branches. Aisle 641 is the Dewey Decimal number where we have all of our cookbook collection. So we invite you to come to the library. And if you'd like more information about any upcoming library programs like this or others, please visit our website at thelibrary.org. And with that, thank you again, Eleanor, and we'll see you later. Thank you.